Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Batman vs. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So, going into this, I would probably say hands down, this has probably got to be the best crossover event. There's a lot of times where things do crossovers, like a Flash show or an Arrow show, or a lot of times you'll like see like Power Rangers who cross over with Ninja Turtles, and like you'll see those things in events that happen every once in blue moon. But like when going into this movie, I think it's the best of both worlds. We kind of have these characters kind of have fun with these things, like as if having Michelangelo be trying on the Batman cape isn't funny enough, because these characters easily find the Batcave in here because basically it's one sewer away, basically. Uh, but yeah, this crossover was such an enjoyable movie. I had seen this once before, and I wanted to go back over it again just to like really just like, man, this really was good. I really did enjoy it. Of course, there is a part in this movie which I think does go into the goofy routes because they have to like forcibly put something different out there. I guess maybe for quite possibly merchandising strategy or whichever. But like they go and they take a bunch of Batman's rogues gallery and ooze it, let's just say. So like there is like some interesting battles coming out of this movie. There is some stuff that has to be tweaked just to be something different. But overall, I just find this movie to be really just an enjoyable piece. Yeah. So going into this movie, I would say like a lot of people would just say, "Man, I would have liked April O'Neil in this, or I would have liked Casey Jones, or I would have liked any number of people that are in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles universe." And because a lot of people could say it's kind of almost heavy or too heavy on the Batman side of things, where we have like Batman's whole entire rogues gallery. We have Alfred in this. We have Damian Wayne in this. We have Batgirl in this, which is really just to like Damian and Batgirl are really just to be there, just so that way there are some spots where like when characters are to separate, there's always some kind of Batmanish like character with a Turtles character. So there's always that even thing throughout here. We also have some interactions because Alfred is actually being a part of this also, where like having fun with some of the turtles, where Michelangelo is to have a little bit of like forgive me, Alfred. Here's my surfboard, or here's my skateboard. Go and do the most coolest tricks, Alfred. He's like, oh, thank you, Michelangelo. Or maybe he'll probably call him Master Michelangelo, or whatever he like, where he calls like Bruce Master Wayne, Master Michelangelo. That would have been funny. I would have laughed at that. Uh, but yeah, so going into this film, it's a lot of fun. Uh, like especially when both Batman and Michelangelo are sharing the Batmobile together. That spot was just like so hilarious. And then we have just Damian Wayne off to the side as Robin just going, like, I wish I could have done what he did. So yeah, there's just some interesting developments here. There might be spots where I may not be familiar with where we are in this movie. Like I know that this movie is to be at the tail end of Ace Chemicals, and I know Batcave and stuff like that. But there might be some like specifics, especially in the intro of this movie, that I might be kind of just they might be at Wayne Enterprises, but I'm not quite sure. But anyways, there's a lot of fun with this movie. Uh, like having the turtles having to interact with anything into Gotham is just so fun. there's so much things that we can just eat away at and just be like, this tastes good. This tastes good. So yeah, it's such a good, like put together crossover event, and more than likely, I'm hopefully going to be able to perfectly say everything and get this all out. But without a doubt, I think it's that coveted time again to go into that double five time territory, because I think it is this thing that I normally would call spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about the time to spoil this movie. God, this was so fun. So beginning of this movie, like, and this is my second time watching it, I'm still just like, God, this was such a fun movie. This is freaking great. Like, it would have been even better if we could have even like gone into doing more crossover movies, but it just what like it would be cool to eventually see like Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles as the actual crossover movie. It would be good to see these kinds of things that like we could have only seen during a comic book do happen in a live action way. And I believe Batman versus Ninja Turtles actually is a comic book, I believe, because I have seen uh, Andre, the Black Nerd Comedy, kind of, I think, review a comic book of this in one of his videos. So technically, if it doesn't seem that I'm accurate about that, I saw a video once, it happened. So let's go into this. So in the very beginning of this movie, we of course have intro scene. Barbara Gordon is to, I guess, be in Wayne Enterprises overseeing some generator device that, like, I was kind of, like, I think the very first time that I saw this movie, I didn't know whether that was going to be, like, Barbara Gordon or whether that was going to be April O'Neil. I'm like, wait, is that the new April O'Neil? Like, huh? But, so all of a sudden we have these ninja stars that come flinging in, and Barbara is to go and use her little notepad to catch the stars. All of a sudden we have the Foot Clan going in and trying to steal this generator. All of a sudden that leads the Ninja Turtles to arrive. I'm going to call them Ninja Turtles. I'm not going to say Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles every single time, or I probably could say TMNT, but abbreviations will be lost on me. I have seen TMNT. Man, what a good freaking animated movie. That was enjoyable. That was fun. We had a bunch of the turtles who had all these like side jobs. Like Donatello was this tech guy. Michelangelo was this mascotted guy. That was like TMNT is a fun animated movie. If you've never seen it, it's not a very like it's not a kids movie to me. Like to me, anybody could probably have fun with it. The story may not be the best in the film because they have this like goofy uh, like thing about it where it's a hunt for these statues. It's kind of a goofy story, but Patrick Stewart is in that, and so I think is Sarah Michelle Gellar, and Chris Evans plays Casey Jones's voice in TMNT. So check that out. So but let's go back into this. So Barbara, Ninja Star is caught, and so the Ninja Turtles are busting in to try to take down the Foot because that's what they're known for. So all of a sudden there is to be smoke that is to be happening. The generator is now gone, and Barbara is like, what the heck just happened? Like, I didn't even get time to like dust off my suit and get into action. And so Barbara is going to Batman, and she used to say, yeah, like I didn't, like, before I knew what was going on, it was all too late. And so Batman is like, well, hey, like somebody's stepping into my town. Like, well, guess what? They're gonna they're gonna think twice about that. So so we eventually have some cool interactions in this movie once we get kind of further along in here. Uh, we have a spot where also Batgirl was calling the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. She ends up calling them like lizard men or whatever. It's like Well, whoever they are, they stepped into my town. They stepped into the wrong city. So, that of course leads us or lends us to eventually having the Ninja Turtles having to eventually take out like Penguin and his men and have to like fight them all off. All of a sudden, like Penguin is to have a number of different gadgets going on with his umbrella, and every single time Michelangelo is to be so excited about every little gadget that this guy's to have. Oh my god, he has a he has an umbrella sword. Oh my god, he has an umbrella gun. Radical. Cowabunga. High 10. Actually, high 4. 3. Because he only have 3 fingers, right? So, anyways, so Penguin is to switch up his gadgets consistently, but once all of Penguin's goons are to be dealt with, that's when Penguin is to take his umbrella and fly off, because eventually he starts fighting with Leonardo, because of course Penguin's sword against sword. Like, it's interesting how we have Leonardo who has his like swords taken from his side instead of taken from behind him. Like, I guess that might have been like, we need to come up with a way to try and make these characters different from any other iteration, so that way it doesn't seem like we're going to get sued from someone. So I guess, or maybe that was just a certain kind of version of a Ninja Turtles that I'm not familiar with. I don't know. So Penguin is to go to fly off. So eventually that leads us to having Batman, who is to be forced to go and have to also fight the Shredder, which is kind of really interesting, because we eventually get Batman who's to use his like grappling gun of a thing to try and grab onto Shredder's arm, and Shredder just tears through it, and then he's like, okay, like, all right, so I guess like I heard about you technically, because we find out in this movie that Shredder is teaming up with Ra's al Ghul, or Ra's al Ghul, whichever version that you'd like to hear the sound of this name being pronounced. Because I've heard several different variations or versions or whatever. So, like, they just can't get this guy's name right ever. Because I've always heard it different ways. Anyway, pushing on. So, we have this really cool fighting moment between both Batman and Shredder. And, of course, Shredder comes in. Like in the very first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, he just kind of like slowly falls onto the ground. It's like, now you face the Shredder. Is Batman gonna have the same joke about like coleslaw or something like that? Maybe he needs a can opener? I don't know. So, like, no, he doesn't do that. So, really, we have mostly the legitimate focus is to be on the forearms of both, well, just the arm combat of both Shredder and Batman, where, of course, like, Shredder has all these, like, freaking, like, Ginsu knife things all over his arm. So, Batman is to counter that with his, like, bat wings that are on his, like, forearm. So, like, there's a lot of that going on. It's a lot of that kind of fighting. But so there's this like interesting combative, like, because this feels like a way different kind of fighting thing than Batman would normally do. And so that's what makes this fight so interesting. But really, this is to all lead to both of these characters. Like, Shredder just does kind of get the better of Batman here, but eventually it just leads to them kind of just, no one catches anybody. Like, nobody is to like hold anybody hostage or knock anybody out. freaking, like, most of this is just to go about their way. So really, that is to eventually lead the Ninja Turtles to go and try to take out more people in this town to eventually find the Batmobile. And they're like, wait a minute, like, this is a really cool car, but who's the guy that owns it? Or who's the person that owns it? Because I guess woman or guy or whichever. So that is to eventually showcase Batman in the most darkest, shadowish thing possible. And, like, now we have, like, Teenage Mutant Turtles versus the Shredder Part 2 here, just because Batman has the skills, like, heavy amounts of skills, that would make him and the battle with Shredder seem so even, because, like, Batman is to know any number of things. But so the funny thing about this is, like, Batman is basically cleaning the clock of all these turtles. It's kind of sad. Like, it feels like every single one of them have that, like, man, we're gonna take this guy out because we want his car, I guess. Or they just naturally assume that this guy could be working with Shredder. That's what they naturally assume. So it's kind of like Avengers Infinity War, where both Iron Man and Spider-Man and Doctor Strange are trying to take out the Guardians of the Galaxy people because they don't know what master they serve. So, and then Michelangelo should just be like, well, should I say Jesus? I'm from Missouri. Could you just imagine, like, if the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like, had to do the voiceover a lot of the Avenger characters? That would be hilarious. Or what if the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were every single Avengers character? Somebody needs to make that video. They cannot take our defenses. Could you imagine, like, Michelangelo T'Challa? That would be hilarious. I'm just thinking of it in my head. It's hilarious. They cannot take our defenses. I just watched recently Black Panther 2. Anyways, pushing on. So, that's all I know is they can't take our defenses. Anyways, pushing on. So, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So, they're trying to take out Batman, and eventually we have another moment where Ralph's Sai is to basically go missing because Batman is to keep it as a keepsake. And when Leonardo busts out his swords, that's what basically Batman uses to counterattack with this Sai to use against Leonardo and his swords. But really, like, this is a really cool sequence. This is a really awesome where, like, Batman is just kind of, like, dusting all these characters out. Like, especially the very first attack where someone is to come in and Batman is to basically just, like, toss this turtle down, kick the turtle to where the turtle in the shell goes and, like, almost bowling ball, like, knocks over one of the other turtles. That is a really cool attack. That is a really interesting maneuver, and I wish that would to be used a lot more often, but it doesn't. Like, I wish they could kind of use the shell more often to attack people, but I don't think it gets used enough. But what do I know? I've never seen freaking every Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle attack in every single show. So maybe there is some show that used that way too heavily, and I don't know the difference because I haven't seen the history of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So that leads us to having Batman just take down every single one of these turtles, and eventually that is to forcibly have Donnie, who's like, dude, we are outmatched. Ninja vanish. Psh. I'm like, wait a minute, didn't the Foot Clan do that? Like, why is all of a sudden Donnie doing Ninja Vanish? I'm like, wait a minute. Like, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze, we had, God, what is his name? Uh, God, it's been so long. Atu, or God, what the second in command to Shredder in those movies, where he's like, Ninja, Vanish, puh. Like, he would do that, not the Ninja Turtles. This seems weird. But anyway, I guess they had to say it somehow. Uh, I think his name is God. It's Atu or something. I don't know, but he'll never definitely play another game of golf again. So uh, got a little Primatine. That'll clear that right up. Anyways, so pushing on. So now, like, Batman is to try to go into his computer and figure out about these Ninja Turtles. It seems that Batgirl wanted to get into the matchup against the Turtles, but Batman was just like, well, there was too many unknowns and all of that. Like now, like because Batman was just trying to slowly but surely try to fight out the Turtles to understand their fighting skills, so that way he can be prepared for his next time out. Because Batman is always thinking, he's always having preparations, and he always has a contingency plan for everything. Because Tower of Babel will tell you that the Justice League Doom story will tell you that Batman is to go into everything slow to figure things out, and then the next time around he is going to be well prepared, or he is going to know exactly what to expect the next time around. And he didn't want anybody to get hurt in the process of Batman trying to figure things out. So uh so that leads to have the Baxter Stockman, who I really like his design in this movie. Like, if you've ever seen Baxter Stockman before, he looks like this ugly effing looking character. And, like, I never really liked his design. In this movie, I can be okay with it. It looks really cool. It also looks really fun. And so, Baxter Stockman is to have the TCRI, and I never knew those initials until more recently because I always called them TGRI for whatever freaking reason. So Baxter Stockman is to be playing around with the TGRI, and they are to eventually give this ooze to Ra's al Ghul to create mutant League of Assassins, which I thought was really interesting. I'm like, oh, okay, so like, but here's the problem that I also have. So in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, you'll probably understand the problem of which that I have in my head here. So wouldn't you need a actual like wolf to create wolf mutated person? Or is that just like, nah, or it's much easier now? Like, you can just find the gene slicing thing that is in someone's body. Because supposedly, if you go into the Star Trek Next Generation episode, every single like character in the Star Trek Next Generation thing had some origin of some ancestral thing. That's why every single crew member, because of data, started to turn into their ancestral thing, where like some characters turned into a spider, or some like Riker, I think, ended up turning into a caveman, or whichever. Like, everybody just started to shift and change to their ancestral thing. So I guess that could be what this technically is everyone is forming back into their ancestral thing, their more primal side, if that's what Ra's al Ghul is to tell you. So one League of Assassin member is to change into this wolf, and Ra's al Ghul is like, okay, this is great, because if anything, like, now we're gonna turn everybody into one of these, and it'll work out well. It'll be an even match to either take out the Turtles or take out Batman, because looking at it, there's a lot of times where like characters like Man Bat was a very difficult thing for Batman to take down. That wasn't such an easy thing to do. Uh, and plus, if people remember the freaking Arkham games, or of course once you had to like climb up into that one building and like Batwing was right in your face, like ah, it's like gets you every goddamn time, because you're not expecting it, and it's so annoying. Plus, a man bat right in your goddamn face is just like God. I hate that. Just because also it's like I really loved Man Bat. If you guys ever had the Michael C. Hall Justice League, God, what was it called? The Justice League one where Michael C. Hall was to be like technically their Batman. God, was that a good animated movie? I really enjoyed that. Just a different spin on a lot of these characters, but they like killed people. They actually like sucked their blood and they murdered people. You could see their blood splattered all over the place. That was a cool animated movie. I don't remember what it was called, but like I think it was like God, Justice League something. I can't think. Anyways, so but check out whatever. If you go into probably Michael C. Hall's IMDb, you'll probably be able to find it because he's done very few animated movies. Anyways, pushing on. So eventually, also, while Batman is to try to much more like assess the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We have also the Ninja Turtles that are doing likewise. They are going and trying to understand Batman more. Michelangelo is having this whiteboard about how like he dresses like a bat and he has a mean voice and like he has a cool car. But yeah, like they're really trying to assess of all of what he is because supposedly they thought that he was an actual bat person. Like, no, that's Men Bat. But no. But eventually we easily have the Ninja Turtles who is to figure out that Batman is to live in a bat cave. And so they end up figuring out that from all of the times of which that Batman has gone on to fight crime, they end up triangulating where exactly Batman could be resting his head at. So that leads them, of course, to figure out easily where the Batcave is. They had to go and swim under this kind of like sewer section for a while to get to him, but eventually they find the Batcave, and all of a sudden we start seeing a cluster of Easter eggs of Batman, like the huge T-Rex, which I don't understand what the origin of that is. We have like the Joker card, which is gigantic for whatever reason. We always, I think, have to have the cliche-ish giant penny that is to always be connected to Two-Face, which I think we ended up seeing somewhere with that being like showcased in an episode with Two-Face. So all of a sudden, like the Ninja Turtles are just having fun with this. And so Damian Wayne was to be off hearing the plan of both Ra's al Ghul and Shredder, and they have to get one more device that is this cloud machine to eventually spread all this primal ooze thing that is to quite possibly have a mixture of Joker toxin within it. They're going to disperse this thing, like, man, I don't know what it is with Ra's al Ghul and having to, like, disperse all kinds of things with his, like, his subway thing and his inhaler thing. Like, I don't know what it is with freaking, like, Ra's al Ghul, and he desperately just needs to just have a device that just, like, goes and just dips all over the world with these primal things and whatever. And here's also the thing that I thought was goofy. They do this during the night where it seems like there is nobody in Gotham anywhere. So like it feels like this town is just deserted. In all brutal honesty, it doesn't feel like there's tons and tons of people. So but anyways, Damian Wayne is to hear that whole plan, and so he is to rush off to go back to the Batcave, and he is to intercept the Ninja Turtles just having fun in the Batcave, where Donatello is desperately like, "Well, I'm gonna go and check out this computer. Let's see what I can get out of it." And Michelangelo is like putting on, of course, bat cape. He's like trying to pretend he's Batman, even though, of course, his head is too big. He can't quite fit, but it just looks freaking hilarious. Uh, Everybody is just kind of like checking things out. And so all of a sudden, Robin is to arrive and all of a sudden try to start like taking down the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But eventually, Damien gets outnumbered. Plus, also, where is Damien's sword? If this wouldn't have been the perfect time for Damian Wayne to have a sword, because I think in the animated movies, eventually he has sword with him all the time, because really he ends up fighting a lot of the League of Assassins, which garner, or he ends up fighting Deathstroke in one of the animated movies. So that leads us to have him have sword for a number of occasions, but I guess he didn't have it in here. So eventually, when that leads to Damien having to try to fight out these Ninja Turtles, that's when Batman comes in, that's when Batgirl comes in, and so eventually that just leads us to, instead of thinking of these people as enemies, they start to realize that maybe they should work together. And because what eventually happens next is both Shredder and Ra's al Ghul are to team up to basically, for the 80th time, not these people specifically, but like it just happens all the time anyways. Every single criminal is to break out of Arkham Asylum. It would have been cool if we would have had some Easter eggs of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that like all of a sudden there would have just been like some character just kind of lying in there, but they don't break him out. Like, what if Casey Jones would have been in Arkham Asylum for a very brief time? Like, they could have had him just be there, but he's not involved in the story, and they could have like made a joke that, like, "Hey man, get me out of here!" Like, no, Casey Jones, like you're the good guy. Like, just to play on the fact that they could have had a Casey Jones for to be in here for a second, but again, there's probably some whole rights to that. It would have been funny if like we could have had April O'Neil like doing a very brief like interview or something about going on in Gotham. That would have been fun. But again, like there's rights to all these characters, and so it's not like they're just going to easily give everything up. So, because that's a lot of royalties and there's a lot of money to be handed over when you got to do some of these things. Hence why a lot of times they only thought the only way Avengers could be done was in an animated movie instead of an actual live action. It would cost way too much money because too many copyrights are to be chucked around. So, but eventually this all leads to all of the Arkham guys being released. We have Scarecrow, Bane, Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn, which I thought it was funny how like Harley Quinn was just kind of getting under like Shredder's nerves. But all this is to eventually lead to having Ra's al Ghul seemingly be working again with the Joker, because I had seen Batman Under the Red Hood, and Ra's al Ghul had worked with Joker once before in that scenario, so I'm like, okay, so he's working with the Joker yet again. So, really, this is to have Joker, of course, in his straight jacket, and I'm like, yeah, like, why isn't he always, like, always, all the time, in just, like, a straight jacket, like, tied to his bed, like, he can't go anywhere, can't do anything. Like, this man, if you give him a free anything, leg, arm, head, something, mouth, like he'll figure out a way to escape Gotham by the skin of his own teeth. Like he'll be able to just get out of Arkham somehow. Like just put him in a like freaking like a God, what is it? Hannibal mask, like do everything. Like forcibly have him when he's to eat anything, forcibly just have him do it through a straw. Like that's how extraneous you should be with this character if you're going to keep him alive. So so that leads us to have Joker spewing out this recipe for the Joker toxin, and so now they can figure out how to use both the ooze and the Joker toxin to mix it together to eventually turn Batman into quite possibly a mutated character as well. So now that that's a thing, so we also have a moment where both Batman, Batgirl, and Damian, uh, Robin, which I'm honestly not a fan. I'll always say it till the cows come home. I'm not a fan of Damian Robin. When eventually Titans go into the Damian route, I'm just gonna be like, okay, like this sucks. Like, I just want them to use Tim Drake for as long as humanly possible. And then eventually, once we get to season 10, when the show is probably going to be dead anyways, freaking just dip in that Damien. Go ahead. Just Batman is just going to have to make a Robin. Because what the heck is eventually Tim Drake going to do? Be Red Robin? I'm assuming. When he leaves to become his own man or his own person. Let me pause here for a second. All right, now that I took that break to do a little bit of a reset. So that leads us to have every single one of the Arkham characters going on and being mutated. So, of course, Harley Quinn is to turn into a hyena because, of course, she has a affiliation for hyenas. Go and watch Birds of Prey. Poison Ivy is to turn into a plant, which basically she is to kind of be an irrelevant character because sadly enough, she ends up planting herself into the ground and then she can't be able to move anywhere. Like there's several times where she's kind of just like clipping at both Robin and the Turtles, but there's nothing she can really do because like sure she's planted into the ground, she can't move her like plant-like body, so she's basically stuck where she is. Bane is to be this half, like, he looks kind of like a cheetah-ish like man, but nothing is to tell me that this character is like a cheetah or a leopard, something like that. And, like, I'm really not understanding, like, how, like, the whole thing of, like, how that really benefits Bane or that really changes his character drastically. Maybe it makes him stronger. I don't know. But we also get this really cool spot where Bane is to try to break the turtle's back. But of course, Shell gets in the way, so that just hurts Bane. And then we just get the spot where, of course, Bane is to be taken out. But we also have Bane, like, gorilla press chucking one of the turtles into these... into this, like, weight gear. Or into these, like, barbells that have weights on them, which end up like falling onto, I think, Donatello. So, weirdly and wildly, Mr. Freeze is to turn into a polar bear. And so that is, I think, of course, having Michelangelo like, oh my god, a polar bear has a freeze gun. Oh my god, this is great. So, Mr. Freeze is like, it's such like an interesting thing, and of course we have Mr. Freeze who has all these cold puns where like Michelangelo's like, oh my god, that's so cool, and Mr. Freeze is like, you don't know cool yet. And he tries to like blast him with the freeze gun. So and I think also Joker is some kind of cobra. So, like, I think I covered most of the characters that eventually are to be seen here. So, oh, and Scarecrow is an actual crow. eventually Scarecrow is to be in this boiler room, and Batman and Leonardo are to go into here, and Batman is to warn Leonardo about the fear toxin, and immediately once he does, Scarecrow gets a douse of Leonardo's face full of fear toxin. So all of a sudden, Leonardo is starting to all of a sudden weirdly see all of his teenage brethren, his turtles, eventually bizarrely all like this is like Tony Stark in Age of Ultron, where all of a sudden all of the Power Rangers are to look just like they're decaying, and then they turn into bone, and then they all fade away. And Leonardo's like, no! And so Batman is trying to tell Leonardo, it's like, focus, because we had this spot where like Batman is kind of like going with Leonardo and trying to like train him a little bit. There's like a spot where Batman is to like kind of teach Leonardo something here. And so and then eventually comes full circle when Batman is to try to teach Leonardo that he needs to focus, and all that he is to see is not actually real. And so eventually that leads Leonardo to eventually focus and eventually take out the right Scarecrow, and then Batman comes in and gives Leonardo the antidote for the fear toxin. So like I think I've covered a bulk. Oh, Two-Face actually turns into a two-faced creature and is to of course be like quickly taken out because he's freaking Two-Face. Like, who cares about Two-Face? Like, he's not like a really cool, like, they didn't do anything with Penguin. They didn't turn him into an actual penguin. Here's a guy that actually has a animal for a name, and you don't turn him into a penguin. I guess because technically he's already somewhat of a penguin, but still, like, you could have actually made a penguin, but what do I know, right? What do I know? God. So, what a disappointing thing. So, we also have these spots where Harley Quinn is trying to fight out like Robin in this hyena thing. It looks interesting. So, but anyways, so all this is to come full circle, and so Batman and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are all to eventually take all of these things out, everything out, eventually. But they end up finding out all of this was just a decoy or just a distraction to distract them from what Ra's al Ghul and Shredder are doing, because neither one of them are here. Because both Ra's al Ghul, or Ra's al Ghul, I'm going to say Raz because I like the word Raz, and Shredder are off going and putting together this cloud machine and putting it up in the air so that way they can ooze everybody. Because basically the whole Arkham thing was a rough draft to see if all of this could work. Also, we have a spot where Batman is to legitimately become an actual bat, but then eventually they douse him with the antidote, so then he ends up becoming Batman again. And that's when Michelangelo and everybody realized, like, oh man, Batman's Bruce Wayne! Oh, this is so cool! So, and bizarrely, we have, like, Michelangelo at Bruce Wayne's bedside just going, like, ah, I can't believe Batman's Bruce Wayne. So is, like, Bruce Wayne going to be funding the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles so they don't have to go and get side jobs or whatever? Like, Batman was just like, hey, here's some new tech. here's some cool other things. Like, here's a lifetime, like, I bought a pizza joint. You're going to have free pizza forever. Is he going to buy the sewer? So that way, like, no one is ever going to be, like, getting any kind of sewer real estate on the Turtles? Anyways, so wouldn't that be funny? So or maybe Wayne will set up the turtles with a better like headquarters or something. Like, dude, you guys don't need to live in the sewers. Like, but technically, Batman has a Batcave, so what is the difference? But like, hey man, like we can more sanitize the locations that you're in. But anyways, like it would have been cool if also we would have actually had like Batman in the actual Ninja Turtles world too, where he's actually in their sewer in their headquarters talking about Splinter and whichever. So but moving on. So eventually we now head to having to have uh, Ra's al Ghul and Shredder now having to fight all the turtles. Because eventually what ends up happening is that the turtles are to try to make their way to now going after Ra's and Shredder, but they eventually meet a bunch of mutated things along the way, which is to all of a sudden lead us to have the turtles in their little vehicle, which I don't remember what exactly it's called. Uh, yeah, I don't remember what it's called. And then the Batmobile, who has Michelangelo, where all of a sudden the Foot Clan is to shoot arrows into the Batmobile, and all of a sudden Batman turns to Michelangelo and he's like, Michelangelo, hit every button. And then Michelangelo is like, ha, 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 ha. He's like hitting every single button he could possibly see. And then we have Damien off to the side who's like, I wish I could have hit every button. Like we see like Batman firework going off. I'm like, wait a minute, what? When do we have Batman fireworks going off? So all of a sudden, that is to eventually lead us to having to fight like a Foot Clan T-Rex and all these goofy-esh monsters that they are to have here. And so pushing us on to have the fight out between Batman and Shredder Part 2 and Ra's versus the Ninja Turtles. And so some really cool spots here. Eventually, I think Donatello and Michelangelo are trying to figure out how to take down the Cloud Machine. Michelangelo, every button that he is to eventually hit is to eventually just lead him into, like, I think making the thing turn on even more or be a better thing. So, yeah, it just, like, they eventually figure it out. Eventually, they just, they take this Cloud Machine down, of course. Eventually, every villain is to be taken down because, of course, they do. And this is all to lead us to eventually having, I think, Ace Chemicals is all taken down. And so I believe at the very tail end of this movie, there is an end credit scene where Shredder is to, like, kind of like in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, where he ends up kind of like thrusting through the rubble again, but all of a sudden we find out it's a Oroku Saki who is now having like Joker toxin mixed into him. So like I guess they were assuming that there might have been a sequel out of this, or they just wanted to do something really fun with a smash up between Joker and Shredder and just kind of have fun with that. To maybe say, hey, if this does well enough, we'll do a sequel. So but yeah, so everybody's taken down. Like, it's the funny part where all of a sudden we have Robin who's to go and try to take out Baxter. And Baxter is like, oh, please don't hurt me. And Robin's like, I am so disappointed. like the guy is like groveling and whatever. And because he's like, technically Baxter is a hostage anyways. So yeah, he didn't want to do anything. He didn't want to harm anybody. So eventually, after all things are said and done, eventually everyone goes back to the Batcave, and eventually their one last thing is for everyone to go and have pizza, because it seems like everybody is trying to make amends with everybody. Like Michelangelo gives Alfred his skateboard. Leonardo is having this connection with Batman. Raph, I think, is having connections with either Batgirl or Robin or whichever. Donatello is, I don't know, he's doing Donatello things. I don't remember. It's vague. So, and I hope I think I've kind of covered everything. There's some things that might have slipped through the cracks, but it's whatever. So, they share pizza. Basically, that's the way that this movie is to head off, and then end credit scene. So, with that said, fun movie. I think bizarrely the pizza company was called Luigi's Pizza. Sure. I don't know if that's an actual thing in either Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles world or Batman's world or whatever. But anyways, I'm going to get out of here. I think this movie was like almost like an hour and change, so I should probably get out of here. Anyways, bye everybody. Bye everybody.